The rain came down in sheets against the glistening glass entrance of the Grand Orion Hotel, one of the most prestigious five-star hotels in the city. Guests in tailored suits and glittering gowns brushed past the revolving doors, greeted by doormen in crisp uniforms and receptionists with practiced smiles. To the world, the hotel was a beacon of luxury, refinement, and exclusivity. But to Ethan Cole, standing outside under the downpour in a damp hoodie and worn jeans, the Grand Orion looked like something else entirely, a test. Nobody knew it, but Ethan was the founder and CEO of Orion International, the billion-dollar company that owned this very hotel. He was no stranger to undercover visits. He had built his empire on the belief that you can only know the truth when you step into the shoes of those who don't have power, when you see what happens when titles and status are stripped away. That evening, he wanted to test something deeper. The Grand Orion wasn't just his flagship property, it was his pride. But he had been hearing whispers, complaints about rude staff, arrogance at the front desk, and guests being treated differently depending on how much they looked like they could spend. He had to see for himself. So he walked in, soaked from head to toe, a cheap duffel bag slung across his shoulder. His sneakers squeaked against the polished marble floor. Heads turned. A security guard frowned. And behind the glossy front desk, the receptionist, a tall woman with sleek blonde hair, narrowed her eyes. "Excuse me, sir," she said sharply, her voice slicing through the elegant lobby. "Can I help you?" Ethan placed his duffel down and smiled warmly. "Yes, I'd like a room for the night. Just one night." Her eyes flicked down his damp hoodie and faded jeans. "Sir, this is a luxury property. The cheapest room we offer is $1,200 a night. Do you understand?" "I do," Ethan said simply. "And I can pay, cash or card." She tilted her head, lips curling. "We're at full occupancy tonight." Ethan's eyes drifted past her to the empty key slots behind the desk. Dozens of them, waiting for guests who hadn't checked in. He turned back to her, calm but firm. "It looks like you have space." "Those rooms are reserved for our clientele," she snapped. "I'll have to ask you to leave before security gets involved." Ethan's heart sank. Not for himself, he had faced worse, but for what this meant about the culture inside his hotel. Still, he gave her one last chance. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I've had a long day. I'd appreciate your kindness. Please, just check if there's a room available. You might be surprised." But her eyes only hardened. She waved a hand toward the door. "We don't have anything for you. You're making our guests uncomfortable." At that, the security guard stepped closer. Two other staff members, concierges in black suits, hovered nearby, watching like vultures. Guests whispered, some looking away, others smirking at the scene. And then, without ceremony, Ethan Cole, billionaire founder of the Orion brand, was escorted out into the storm like a beggar. He stood under the rain for a moment, letting the humiliation wash over him. Not for himself. He could afford 1,000 rooms in the city, but for the principle of it. For the truth of what he had just seen: arrogance, prejudice, and cruelty. 20 minutes later, the revolving doors spun open again. This time, Ethan didn't walk in wearing a hoodie. He stepped inside in a tailored charcoal suit, his shoes polished, his presence commanding. A black car had dropped him off at the curb, and a personal assistant followed close behind. The lobby froze. The receptionist's face paled, then flushed red. The security guard stiffened. Even the concierges looked uneasy. Because now, Ethan Cole wasn't some damp stranger with a duffel bag. He was the man whose portrait hung in the executive boardroom. The man who signed every paycheck in this building. The same man they had just kicked into the rain. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words carried the weight of thunder. "Gather every staff member working this evening," he said, his tone like steel. "Now." Within minutes, the grand lobby filled with nervous employees. Receptionists, concierges, housekeeping supervisors, even the restaurant manager, all of them standing in uneasy silence. The luxury hotel had never felt so tense. Ethan stood at the center, his gaze sharp but calm. He held up the hoodie he had been wearing earlier, still damp. 20 minutes ago, he began, his voice steady. "I walked into this hotel dressed like this. I asked for a room. I was willing to pay full price. What I received was not hospitality. What I received was contempt." The staff exchanged anxious glances. The receptionist's face had gone as white as marble. Ethan continued, I was told there were no rooms available, despite the fact that there are plenty. I was told I was making guests uncomfortable. And I was escorted out, not with kindness, not with compassion, but with disdain. His words cut through the silence like knives. This hotel, he said firmly, was built on a promise. That anyone who walked through those doors would feel valued, respected, and cared for. Whether they were dressed in Armani or in a rain-soaked hoodie. Whether they carried designer luggage or a beat-up duffel bag. That promise has been broken tonight. A hush fell. Some staff shifted uncomfortably. Others looked down in shame. And then Ethan dropped the hammer. Every single staff member who stood by and allowed that treatment to happen, every one of you who participated in it, you were dismissed, effective immediately. Gasps echoed through the lobby. The receptionist broke down, stammering, Sir, I didn't know, it was a misunderstanding, I thought. Ethan raised a hand. You thought wrong. Hospitality is not about judgment, it's about humanity, and tonight, humanity was absent. He turned to the few staff members who had looked uneasy during the scene earlier. The young bellhop who had quietly tried to intervene. The housekeeper who had frowned in disapproval. The junior concierge who had muttered, maybe we should check availability. You three, Ethan said, his tone softening, thank you. You remembered what it means to serve with compassion. You will stay, and you will help me rebuild this team from the ground up. The rest of the staff, stunned, some crying, some angry, slowly filed out of the lobby. The guests who had gathered to watch remained silent, many of them visibly shaken by the turn of events. Some even clapped quietly, admiration glinting in their eyes. Ethan stood there, taking it all in. Not with satisfaction, but with resolve, because tonight wasn't about firing people. It was about reminding everyone, staff, guests, even himself, that true luxury isn't chandeliers or marble floors. It's kindness. It's dignity. It's making every person who walks through the door feel safe, seen, and respected. And Ethan knew he had work to do. That night, as the rain finally eased outside, the Grand Orion stood in silence. But a new chapter had begun.